We grew up with a specific image of the Great Pyramids. It's a story of hundreds of thousands of people, half-starved and whipped, dragging these 2.5-ton blocks under the desert sun. But just 400 meters south of the Great Sphinx, the sand has revealed a different reality. Since 1991, archaeologists have been uncovering a sprawling, perfectly organized city that housed the people who actually built Giza. This city, found by archaeologist Mark Lehner, contained workshops, doctors' offices, and barracks that could sleep thousands. These weren't the camps of a desperate slave army, they were the quarters of paid laborers. This creates a fundamental question of economics. In Old Kingdom Egypt, there was no coinage, no silver pieces, no copper drachma, no shekels in the treasury. When you are building the largest stone structure on Earth, you have to find a way to manage a massive payroll without a single coin to your name. The Egyptian state solved this by creating a standardized, edible currency. Every single day, the workers were handed their wages in two specific things: bread and beer. To understand how you build a monument with a bakery, we have to look at the ancient accounting ledgers and literally bake a 4,500-year-old paycheck. Egyptologists have spent decades translating dry administrative texts, the inventories and tallies carved into stone. These records tell us the exact daily volume of that ration. This chart shows the daily allotment for a single laborer: 10 loaves and 5 liters of beer. This output was managed by the Pershena, a combined bakery, brewery, and granary processing the state's agricultural wealth into edible units. Back in the kitchen, we can see the raw materials of this currency. This is emmer wheat, a primitive ancient grain that is genetically almost identical to what was growing in Egyptian fields at the time of Khufu. When you look at these grains, you see a texture modern wheat has lost. It is wholemeal, brown, and when ground, it smells grassy and nutty rather than neutral. The only other active ingredient is a wild yeast starter. This is simply flour, water, and thyme, capturing whatever wild strains happened to be floating in the air of the bakery 4 millennia ago. By combining this specific grain and wild yeast, the state was creating a standardized unit of energy intended to be burned by the human body as muscle work. I mix the emmer flour with boiling water to create a stiff, porridge-like dough. It doesn't puff up like a modern loaf. It undergoes a slow, sleepy, ancient lift. While that rests, we have to look at the liquid half of the paycheck. The beer wasn't brewed in kettles. It was actually made from bread that had been pulled from the fire while the center was still raw. Bakers would crumble those half-baked, yeast-heavy loaves into vats of water and let them ferment. This created a thick, nutritious liquid that workers often drank through long straws to filter the grain. It was less an intoxicating beverage and more a liquid bread. Returning to the solid bread, mass production relied on the bedja. These are bell-shaped clay molds, several centimeters thick, each weighing about 12 kilograms. Ancient bakers didn't use ovens. They wedged these molds into pits of red-hot embers until the clay itself was glowing, turning the pot into a portable heat chamber. To replicate this, I heat a terracotta pot in my oven until it's scorching. I ladle the dough into the bottom and cap it with a second hot pot to trap the steam inside. This clay chamber functioned as a high-volume processing tool, efficiently turning the state's agricultural surplus into uniform, durable portions of fuel. When I slide the loaf out of the pot, it's a dark walnut brown, nearly cylindrical block. It is the strangest, most utilitarian piece of bread I have ever baked. Slicing into it with a vintage knife reveals a crumb that is amber, dense, and heavy. It feels more like a piece of building material than a modern snack. It is rough. There is a grassy bitterness from the emmer hull and a deep tang from the wild starter. It's not what we would call delicious, but it is honest. This density is exactly what a worker needed. It's slow-burning energy, the kind of calorie-heavy meal that sustains a human body through hours of dragging a sled across hot sand. In hieroglyphics, the word for sustenance is represented by these two shapes carved together, a bread loaf and a beer jar. Side by side, they meant eating well, a concept applying to every person, from the field hand to the pharaoh. The pyramids stand because of a biological conversion. A civilization learned how to translate a wheat field into a stone monument by passing it through human bodies fueled by 10 loaves and 5 liters of ale a day. If you enjoyed this time travel in the kitchen, hit the subscribe button below. Let me know in the comments if I should try brewing the Heit beer next, because I've been looking at the fermentation crocks all week. Until next time, keep baking the past.